Welcome back to the Get Loved Up podcast, your number one resource for inspiration and motivation to live your purpose, make healthy living a priority, and thrive doing what you love. I'm your host, Koya Webb, a small town girl who chased her dreams and caught them, a former track and field athlete who healed using spirituality and yoga, and an entrepreneur who didn't let sexual assault, racism, and insecurities dim her light. And now it's your turn to allow these episodes with some of the top voices in spirituality, wellness, and entrepreneurship to inspire you to thrive. Let's get loved up together. Neale Donald Walsch has written 39 books on contemporary spirituality and its practical application in everyday life. 7 of the 9 books in his Conversation with God series have made the New York Times bestseller list, with book 1 remaining on that list for 134 weeks. His titles have been translated into 37 languages. He is the creator of Conversations with God Connect at www.cwgconnect.com, a global online platform connecting people who wish to more deeply explore the messages in the Conversations with God body of work. His latest book is The God Solution, published December 2020. He may be reached at nealedonaldwalsch.com. Neale, thank you so much for being here.
It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
I am so overwhelmed with joy and gratitude. And I did so much research preparing for our call. In addition to diving into your newest offering, I dived into a couple of interviews you did before. And there was one quote a woman said, because I was like, I can't even sum up like how Conversations with God affected me and how reading that book at a very pivotal part in my time in my life after going to Agape, and really I read the Course of Miracles, and then when I read Conversations with God, I was like, wow, thank you. And this woman quoted, and hopefully I get this quote right, but she said, "You introduced me to a God that I could fall in love with." And I was like, wow. And being a Southern Baptist girl, and I know we'll talk about the different concepts of God and things like that, I really resonated with that because I was introduced to a God that I felt like I was always disappointing, and that was always, I just felt very judged and ashamed. And I had all these different feelings of not being good enough for God or not being good enough for the world even. And I agree that after reading Conversations with God, I felt like I had a different relationship with God. So first and foremost, I want to thank you for that.
That's a very wonderful thing to hear. Thank you for telling me that. It feels good to know that these wonderful messages that I've been given to share have touched your life in such a positive way. Thank you for telling me that.
And thank you for just the way that you hold space for people in their relationship with God. And I think that's where I want to start with, just talking a little bit about your relationship with God, because I know from your interviews that in the beginning you were an altar boy, right? Or training to be an altar boy, and you had a calling on your life, but because you were late, I think 3 minutes or 3 seconds late for a meeting, you got kicked out. And now you're one of the foremost thought leaders on spirituality. Can you talk a little bit about that time and how you felt and how it led up to where you are now?
Well, there were a number of things in my childhood. That was one of the events. I really was convinced, Koya, that I would be a priest. I wanted to be a Catholic priest. I wanted to be like, Bing Crosby and going my way. I just wanted to be that everybody's hero with the little white collar and all that, and totally sacred person. But that was when I was 13, 14, 15, maybe even 16 years old. But when I looked closely at the priesthood, I was reminded that priests had to be celibate and could never have relationship with a lady. And right about the same time, I remember opening this is years ago, of course, we're talking 45, 50 years ago, but I opened my first copy of Playboy magazine, which had a full fold-out picture of a lady with nothing on. I mean nothing anywhere. I got to see everything. And that was the end of my ideas about being a priest. I thought, oh, no, we're not giving that up. That's not happening. But there was a third incident that was really a little more serious also in my life. When I was 9 years old, Koya, I was attending a parochial school, and the priest came in once a week on Wednesdays to teach catechism. Catechism is a word that means a class in the doctrine and the dogma of the Catholic Church. So he would come in once a week. He's a very nice gentleman. He would come in once a week and teach the doctrine of the church. And this particular Wednesday, he came in and he said, he told us that if we miss Mass, if we don't go to Mass on Sunday, without a really good excuse. He said, if you're caring for a sick parent or whatever, that's understandable. But if you don't have a good excuse, if you miss Mass and you should happen to get hit by a car on Monday, God forbid, and maybe you die in the accident, you will be sent to hell. And I remember I was 9 years old when I heard this, and as it happened, that was a Sunday, the Sunday just before that Wednesday, when I actually didn't go to Mass. I went to the playground to play baseball. I wanted to just, it was the big game of the week, and I didn't want to miss the big game. And I was on the local playground team. It was our team versus another playground across town. It was kind of like the World Series of playgrounds. And I couldn't imagine missing the game. So I thought, well, I won't go to church this Sunday. It's okay if I miss 1 week. Then that Wednesday, he tells me, if you should die before, you go to confession and confess your sins, you would be condemned to hell. And he was dead serious. He wasn't joking around.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, I thought, now if you don't think that would send a 9-year-old boy to confession in a hurry, think again. So I went to confession. I mean, how many sins can a 9-year-old boy confess? I didn't, so I was making stuff up, literally, because I had to go to confession and confess that I didn't go to Mass. I went to play baseball instead. But I didn't have anything else to confess, but I didn't want to waste a poor guy's time. So I remember distinctly sitting there, not sitting there, but kneeling there in the confessional, making stuff up, so that the priest would have, more to forgive me. I said, well, Father, I missed Mass on Sunday. I went and played baseball. He says, mm-hmm. I said, then I talked back to my mother. I was disrespectful to my mom, which I wasn't, but I said that. Mm-hmm. I said, and I stole some coins off of my brother's dresser top. It wasn't a lot of money, but maybe 35 or 40 cents. But I remember taking the coins, thinking he would never miss them. I never did that, but I made that up. I started making up stuff so that he would, have something to forgive me for. So he gives me, he sends me out of the confessional, with the sign of the cross. He gives me, in nomine Patri Filii Spiritus Sancto, Amen. Sends me out, tells me to say 3 Our Fathers and 3 Hail Marys and 3 Glory Bees, and your sins will be forgiven. So I did as I was told, and then I didn't even think about what the sin of lying to the priest was. To talk about a circular logic, here I am, telling him that I missed Mass, which was true, that I'm telling him 3 other lies. It didn't even occur to me, wait a minute, what about the sin of lying to a priest of all people? So But that event, honestly, I like to laugh about it now. But when I was told about that, I thought, let me see if I understand this correctly. God is so judgmental and so needy and so condemning and so punishing that he's going to punish a 9-year-old boy with hellfire and brimstone for the rest of eternity because I didn't go to church last Sunday? Yeah, and even at 9, I was trying to put that together. Mm. And as I grew older, I realized, when I got to be 13, 14, 15, that can't be the way it is. I can't. And I was also told in those days that all non-Christians, Jews, Hindus, Muslims, anybody who was a non-Christian was also going to hell. It didn't matter if they were kind or caring or compassionate or forgiving or loving or generous people. It didn't matter. You chose the wrong religion, you're going to hell. So I'm trying to put this data together in my head. I'm trying to think of, they're telling me that God is love. Then they're telling me that love judges, condemns, and punishes people for the most trivial things. So that's really what caused me to begin to step away from the idea of what organized religion was trying to tell me. But I didn't really replace it with anything. What happened was I lived from the time I was around 19 or so until I was almost 49 or 48 years old without any real substitute. I wasn't going to any church, to any synagogue, to any temple. I had virtually no spiritual activity at all until I wound up living on the sidewalk as a street person, which happened to me when I was 48 years old because I had a car accident in which I broke my neck. A man turned in front of me and hit me. And it took the insurance company. They all agreed. The insurance agreed. The police agreed. Even he agreed that it was his fault. The accident was his fault. He just made a bad turn. But he hit my car and my neck snapped. I remember hearing it. I knew that something bad had happened because my neck snapped so hard, I heard it. And I thought, oh, this is not good. So I tried to keep my head as still as possible, and I drove to the hospital, and I said, I think I have an injury. And they did an x-ray and said, yeah, you have a broken neck. And Koya, I had a 3/4 inch, I remember the words from the x-ray, because it's not something you forget. I remember it said diagnosis, 3/4 inch avulsion fracture of the 7th cervical vertebrae posteriorly. So, do you know what a 3/4 inch, we're not talking about a hairline fracture, a 3/4 inch fracture is enough to put a pencil through.
Wow. And
so the doctor said, you're lucky to be alive.
Wow.
And you're not only lucky to be alive, but since you did survive the accident, you're lucky you're not paralyzed for life. Mm-hmm. But I had to wear a therapeutic collar, what's known in the therapy business as a Philadelphia collar. I had to wear this collar, this plastic collar, to hold up my head because my neck could not support my head for almost a year. And I was out of work. I was late at the same time that this happened. I was laid off of my job. I was what they called in those days downsized. The company couldn't afford, they were losing money, and they had to lose some employees, and I was the last one hired. So the rule was last in, first out, because I had no seniority. Seniority. So I was let go, not because they didn't like my work, but I was just let go. So now I had no income. I had a broken neck. And at the same time in my life as well, believe it or not, my relationship began falling apart. So I call this the time in my life when I had a triple whammy: relationship, work, and health. All three falling apart at the same time.
Wow.
So, I fell to my knees one night, and I thought, because my wife wanted me out of the house, I agreed. I said, okay, I'm not going to be a problem around this, so I'll just leave. So I left. Our relationship was over, my health was over, and my work was over. So I remember waking up in the middle of the night thinking, okay, where do I go from here? What's going on? Obviously, there's something I don't understand about life, the understanding of which would change everything.
Right.
And so I remember I woke up, I went to the living room. It was 4:23 in the morning. I went to the living room in this little place that I had rented, a tiny little flat. And I started, calling out to God in my mind. What does it take to make life work? And I saw a yellow legal pad on the table in front of me. So I started writing it out. What does it take to make life work? What do you want from me? What do you want from me? I'm not that bad of a person. What is it I'm supposed to be doing here? I remember thinking, somebody tell me the rules. I'll play. I promise I'll play. Just give me the damn rule book.
Right.
Tell me how the game goes. And once you give me the rules, don't change them every other week, because it felt like the rules were changing all the time. So I was writing these angry questions on my yellow legal pad, and that's when I received that first experience of communicating, because I heard a voice clear as you're hearing mine now.
Your voice went away.
Oh, clear as my voice is. You can hear my voice now.
You're such a jokester. I was like, wait a minute, that was too on point. Oh, you're so good.
Anyway, I heard the voice, and the voice said, Neale, do you really want answers to these questions? Or are you just venting, just getting it off your chest? And I remember writing on the yellow legal pad. I was really angry. I was writing in big words because I was really angry. I said, yeah, if you've got answers, I'd sure as hell like to know what they are. And in my mind, I got the thought, wouldn't you rather be sure as heaven? You don't want to be sure as hell. You want to be sure as heaven. I said, and I wrote down, what's that supposed to mean? I thought, okay, I got a wise guy here. And I'm getting these answers to whatever I wrote. I would get an answer, and I wrote down the answer. Then I would have another question, and I wrote down the answer that I was given, and I would have another question. Before I knew it, Koya, I was involved in an on-paper dialogue, question answer, question answer, question answer, and this went on the whole night until 10 o'clock in the morning, and then every night around 4:30 or so, I would be awakened out of a dead sleep, and with the urge to continue that dialogue. I never thought that it would be I wasn't trying to write a book. It didn't even occur to me. I thought I was just having a personal process, just a private, sacred process, journaling, call it journaling or whatever you want to call it. But it never occurred to me that anybody else in the world would ever read this private question and answer process, this session that I was having. But then, somewhere in the middle of that process, this thought, this voice said to me, you will make of this one day a book. And it will be read by many people. And I thought, now I got you. Because everything else that I was being told was conceptual in nature. It was just theoretical. Could be, could not be. Who would know? But now here is a statement of fact. This will one day become a book was not conceptual. That was a statement, a prediction, an actual prediction. So I thought, now that's what I call a measurable outcome. I can measure that. So I thought, we'll see about that. I decided to send my handwritten notes to a publisher because I knew that nobody was going to ever publish this. I mean, who's going to publish it? I could see a publisher going to the workroom floor and saying to his editors, "Hold the presses. I got a guy here who's talking to God." Nobody's going to publish that book. So I knew that, it was not real. What I was experiencing was not real. But in fact, wouldn't you know, my telephone rang about a week later, and it was one of the publishers. I sent it to only 3 publishers. Sometimes when you want to get a book published, you might send it to 5, 6, 8. I know people will send it to 25 or 30 different publishers to see if somebody will pick it up. I sent this to 3 publishers, and one of those publishers called me. And he said, "We want to publish this book." I said, No. He said, "Yes, we want to publish it. We can't offer you an advance. You're a totally unpublished. We don't even know who you are. You're an unpublished author, a strange person in Oregon, but we like the material and we want to publish it. If you'll allow us to publish it without sending you an advance, we'll give you like a 20% royalty on whatever it sells." And I thought, my gosh, they're actually going to publish this. So I gave him permission. I said, "Yeah, publish the book." He said, "We don't like the title. We think the title will push people away." I said, "Well, I'm sorry, we're not changing the title. If you're going to publish it, you're going to publish it as what I experienced it as, which are conversations with God." So he said, "Well, okay, we think it's not going to sell many with that title because people are going to be pushed back from it." And he was right. It didn't sell very many copies. It only sold, I think, something like 12 or 15 million copies.
Wow.
in 37 languages. And so that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I love that story. Thank you so much for selling it. I bought one of those copies, and I'm so grateful that I did. And I love especially what you said about someone doubting you and telling you something was not going to do well, and it does well. And I kind of want to dive into that because there's a lot of times in life, and there's a lot of people right now with the state of the world, and they're like, it ain't going to be good for us. Like, the world's crap and you're part of it. What do you have to say to people who are looking at the darkness or looking at a work like your work and saying, and it's not going to do well? Because I know you have a different perspective. Can you share that with us?
No, I refuse to. It's none of your business. Oh, all right. I would say, I don't think you're seeing life as it really is. I think that you're seeing life as an experience where there are no really good or positive possibilities. I think that you're also misunderstanding who you are. Excuse me.
What? You got to wipe your nose? You're actually human? Come on, Neale. You're better than this.
No. What it is I cry at my own material.
You're laughing not to tears. You're laughing to snot. You got me laughing to snot too. Okay.
So I tell people, I don't think you really understand how life works, who you really are, why we're here, the whole process by which events occur, and the reason that they occur in the way that they occur. So it feels to me that once you become clear about who you are, at the purpose and the point of life itself, then you might begin to hold the possibility that something other than the most dire and drastic and negative outcome could actually happen. If enough of us decide to become idea heroes and put into the space of life a thought that we know that most people will disagree with, but a thought that could, in fact, change the world.
I love that. And we were in an event together with my mentor, Michael Beckwith, and that's the first time I heard of idea heroes. Can you expound on that a little bit and what it means to be an ideal hero? Because a lot of people listening have never heard of that concept. And I feel like if you haven't heard of a concept, you're not necessarily attuned to the conversations of God that are happening all the time. How can people tap into being in alignment with that? And we'll explain the concept first and then how people can tap in.
An idea hero is a person who speaks, offers an idea that she or he knows that the largest number of people will disagree with, but they offer the idea anyway. It takes a level of heroism to do that. It takes courage to do that. An example would be from history, a good example is Galileo. Galileo stood up in 1603 and said that he had discovered through his scientific studies that the earth revolved around the sun. Now, the church at that time said, no, the sun revolves around the earth. The church actually taught, as a formal part of its doctrine, that the earth and its inhabitants were the center of the universe. And so the sun must revolve around the earth. We were God's greatest and prime creation. So they got the church fathers, because Galileo was a Catholic, they actually had him arrested for ecclesiastical heresy, for blasphemy. They put him under house arrest. They condemned him and told him he was going to hell. But he did not waver from his original idea. So he was an idea hero. He kept on saying it, even though everybody was against him. And he died actually in under house arrest. He died. They didn't put him in jail. At least they had him in the house, but they put him under house arrest. He couldn't leave the house.
Right.
So he died under house arrest. Barbara McClintock is an idea hero. Barbara is a lady who a few years ago, 1955 or so, she was a geneticist. She said she discovered what she called jumping genes. Without getting into the geneticist aspect of it, she said she found a reason why traits can be inherited in different ways that we expect. There's inconsistency in the inheritance of certain traits. So her profession told her she was wrong, that she didn't know what she was talking about. And they made her wrong, and they denied her place in history until 1983, when she won the Nobel Prize for physiology and medicine. And then they all went, oh, maybe we were wrong. Just like the church did, the Catholic Church, but it only took the church 360 years. In 360 years later, the church admitted, okay, fair enough, we were wrong. The earth does revolve around the sun. Galileo was right. And they rescinded their condemnation of him. Of course, he was dead for 350 years, but they withdrew their condemnation of Galileo. Like, oh, we were wrong about that too. Looks like he was right. So an idea hero is a person who says something and sticks by it and even shares it publicly with others, even though she knows or he knows that the largest number of people are likely to disagree. And they do it at all costs. They're willing to, as the Bible says, they will fall away on your left and they will fall away on your right. That is, no one will stand by you. They'll just desert you. Now, an example of an idea hero is a person who says, actually, our idea of God is inaccurate. God does not judge anybody. God does not condemn anybody. And God does not punish anybody. Now, a statement like that violates the doctrine of all of the world's religions. Virtually every religion on earth says God is judgmental, punishing, and condemning, and will condemn you if you don't obey the rules that God has set up. So it takes an idea hero to put such a thought into the world. But in the book, The God Solution, it is proposed as an hypothesis. What if, hypothetically, we decided as a species to change our definition of God? What if we decided that, in fact, we were wrong all these years? What if it turns out that God is actually pure love? Now, some people, when I give this talk in a front of a live audience, some guy in the back of the room almost always will get up and say, "Oh, Neale, we came here tonight to hear something really interesting and revolutionary. You're telling us that God is love. Everyone knows that God is love. No one would disagree with that. God is love. Of course, God is love." Then I have to say, wait a minute. I didn't say God is love. I said God is pure love. There's a difference. And the man in the back of the room will say, "All right, what's the difference?" And I have to say the difference is that pure love needs, expects, requests, and demands nothing in return. Human beings don't know how to love each other that way. We can't even love the person that we hold to be dearest person in our life, the person across the pillow, the person we're sleeping with. We can't even imagine loving that person, much less anybody else, without needing or expecting or requiring or demanding something in return. We can't even imagine a God who would do that. We can't even imagine the supreme being having the ability to do that. So we've created a theology that says, no. God loves us. But because he loves us so much, he has to have certain rules. We have to obey them. And if we don't obey them, like we have to go to Mass on Sunday. We can't be gay. We have to be straight. We can't be involved in a same-sex marriage. We have to obey the 10 Commandments. We have to belong to the right religion. We can't be Jewish. We can't be Muslim. We can't be Hindu. We can't be anything. We have to do all these things, or God will punish us and condemn us to everlasting damnation. So the sad part about that, Koya, is that people base their behaviors using God as their model.
Right.
We assume that God is the highest entity in the universe. So we should, if we were to imitate God, emulate God, use God as our model, then you can't do any better than that. So we feel that it's okay for us to be judgmental, condemning, and punishing with others, because after all, that's how God loves us. So why shouldn't we act that way with others? Now, if we changed our mind about God We would be changing the model that we are using on which to base our own behaviors with other human beings. And suddenly, people would act differently with people. Nations would act differently with nations. Races would act differently with races. Religions would act differently with religions. We would have an entirely different experience of life on this planet. I could, of course, be wrong about all of that. There are a lot of people who might disagree with me, but I'm not giving up this idea because I believe that I got this idea directly from God.
And I believe you're an idea hero, and I love it. And it feels so good. And it feels so in alignment. And I know a lot of people listening now, like, wow, just take a deep inhale and exhale. And just breathing that in feels good in every cell of my body. And because of all we've experienced in the world, if we think about, okay, what if I didn't judge? What if I didn't punish? What if I didn't? What does that look like? So I want you to paint a picture because I feel it. And I'm like, yeah, that's the God solution. So how do we start implementing that as ideal heroes who are in alignment? How do we start to implement?
By coming to a realization that we need nothing. See, it's the idea that I need something that stops me from loving you, to say nothing about the person across the pillow, in a pure way. No, you don't understand. I have to get something back. I mean, I need something. So if I'm going to love you completely, then there are certain things I have to get back from you. You have to treat me in a certain way. You have to offer me certain demonstrations of your love for me. And I need those. I need those demonstrations. Otherwise, I can't love you. So the beginning of pure love is the realization that we need nothing, in particular from another person, in order to love them.
Wow.
And we can say to the other person, I love you no matter what.
Wow, that's deep, because I have a question, and it's very serious, because I feel like that sometimes I feel like I need nothing, and I also need everything. And I don't need anything back from you, but then I need everything back. And I feel like our bodies and our cells are set up in a way, like, and the world's set up in a way of this like circle of like giving and receiving. So when it comes to like nature and our cells reproducing, it needs food to reproduce. And like, how is that possible in human existence to not be in this constant cycle of giving and receiving? And
not needing does not mean you have to abandon the cycle of giving and receiving.
Please.
The two are not the same thing.
Okay.
Desire and need are two different things.
Can you break that down for me?
Oh, absolutely. If I go to the bedroom where my wife is lying down and come to her from a place of need, I really need a particular experience. It's an entirely different energy than if I come to her with an energy of desire. Desire is a whole different energy. She may welcome being desired, but she may not welcome being needed.
Oh, that broke it down real easy.
And so we see that I use that example because most adults have been there. And most adults, both men and women, have experienced that. So it's a really easy one for people to get the difference. So because we have desire for certain things, doesn't mean that we have to give up the giving and receiving cycle.
Mm-hmm.
I can have a desire to receive something back from you in order to give to you, but I don't have a need. I simply have a desire.
Right.
And there's a huge difference. And what I've learned in my life now, Koya, I'm an older person. I'm sure you can see that I'm
what?
3 or 4 weeks older than you are.
Oh.
So what I've learned in the 3 or 4 weeks that I have on you is that if I am not receiving what I desire from one particular person, there will be others who will love to give that to me. Whatever it might be, acknowledgement, praise, companionship, sex, approval, whatever it might be. But when I was a young person, where I made my mistake was thinking I could only get the things that I desired from one other person. And if that person didn't give it to me, then, what was I going to do? Where was I going to get it? That was out of luck. I was just out of luck.
Right.
And I actually, had a challenge in my life because I didn't understand when I was a younger person the difference between desire and need. But when Conversations with God came along, especially the book Communion with God, and I was told in that book that the first illusion of humans is the illusion that need exists. And once we take need off the table, your whole life changes. Suddenly, I can have a relationship with a person and not need anything in particular from them. Now, the ironic part about that is the thing that I was always afraid of is that that person that I really, really, really love is going to leave me. Maybe they might leave me. People don't leave someone else who loves them limitlessly and says, I don't need you to love me back in any particular way. Koya, if I say I love you and I need something back from you, then in truth, I'm not really loving you. I'm simply loving me through you. I'm simply using you as an instrument through which I can experience being loved.
Wow.
And so, but when I can love you without needing anything back from you, now I'm actually loving you just for who you are, just sitting there across the room without me getting anything out of it for myself.
And that's pure love.
That's pure love. It's the way God loves us. See, God doesn't need anything from us. God doesn't require anything from us. God doesn't get upset if we don't go to Mass on Sunday, or if we're a Hindu, or a Muslim, or a Jew, and not a Christian. God's not up there going, oh, I'm really going to take care of Koya. She's going straight to hell when she dies because she left the Christian church. She left the Southern Baptist Church. Wait a minute. Let me get her name down here. Maria, yes, okay. Guys, and then he says to the angels, guys, take care of this. Make sure that when she dies, she goes to hell. I mean, is that really our understanding of God? I could do a stand-up comedy routine out of this and get a lot of laughs.
I think you should. It might do just as well as your book.
Yeah.
No, but you're right. Like I believed that for so many years, and until I always felt differently though. I felt like my mind believed it because I was told to believe it, but my heart and my soul was like,
Exactly. It didn't ring true at the deepest part of our being.
No.
I remember the first day I went to a Coptic church. It was many years ago now. I've known Michael for almost 25 years. But I remember the first day, it was probably 23 years ago. that somebody dragged me into. I was in LA to give a talk, and somebody said, let's go and catch this guy. You really want to hear this guy? I said, great. So I went to that Sunday morning service, and I listened to Michael. And I remember, oh, wow. Oh, wow. Does he have it or what?
Exactly.
And not only does he have it, but has he been given the gift, the ability to give it, to say it, to express it, so that it rings true in your heart, in your heart of hearts. There's no way you walk out of the room feeling bad. You walk out of the room going, wow, if that isn't the truth, I don't want anything to do with it. That's got to be the truth. So there are people on the planet, and Michael is clearly one of them. He's my brother, and I love him to pieces. He could ask me to do anything, and I would do it. But that's how I happened to give a talk at his church on the 30th anniversary, because he asked me to. And I said,
I'm so glad.
I said, of course I will. You know, without a fee. I didn't get a fee. I didn't get, normally I get a speaking fee, but of course I didn't need a speaking fee from Michael. I said, Michael, what do you want me to do? I'll stand in my head for you. But, you know, whatever you want is yours. Because he gives the same way.
Right.
So we're both playing the same game. And he's my brother.
Right.
I love him tearfully. I love him tearfully.
Oh, me too. And that's exactly how I felt the first time I stepped foot in Agape. That's exactly how I felt when I left from the music to the ministry to the community. I felt full of pure love, unjudged, unpunished, fully embraced. And it changed my life. And I continue to be introduced to people like yourself through this community. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of community? Do you feel there's importance? Because I know you said we don't have needs, we have desires if we're in pure love. So how do you feel community? Because I felt so much like during the pandemic, it was so much power in being to myself and healing and going deep within. But it's also so much healing and power in community as well. So can you speak a little bit about, is this desire for community and even desire for another person and how that affects our life versus, again, not needing it, but realizing, hey, when I have A, B, C, and D, I feel somehow better. Can you explain, like, why do I feel better when I am nurturing myself? Why do I feel better when I'm in community with other people that resonate at a high frequency in my body? Can you talk a little bit about that?
All of life is energy. Everything is energy. I am energy, you are energy. Everything really is some form, some vibration, some projection of what we call energy. We are talking here, when we use the word community, about what Conversations with God calls the multiplier effect. You know, is one person pushing the boulder going to get it to move, or 20 people pushing the boulder going to get the boulder to move? It's about the multiplier effect. So what you're discussing is that energy is multiplied when we are in a group. We can feel that multiplier effect. It actually increases our own energy because energy attracts like energy. Energy is magnetic. It attracts similar energy. So when we're in a room, where there are people who are expressing the same ideas, the same thoughts, and sharing love in the same way, which is what I experienced when I was at Agape the first time. I could feel my own energy expanding and opening and feeling my own energy being multiplied by the energy in the room.
Right.
So it's simply the multiplier effect. And it's also because the soul knows that the idea that we are separate from anything or anyone else is a lie. The soul knows that the mind thinks that I'm over here and it's over there and I'm not you and I'm not the tree and I'm not anything. I'm all out here by myself. But the soul knows that that's not what's true. The soul knows that you and the tree, in fact, are one. That you and the other person across the room, in fact, are one. The soul understands that there is only one thing, and all things are part of the one thing there is, which happens to be the first sentence of any importance in the Conversations with God books. Book 1, Chapter 1. All things are one thing. There is only one thing, and all things are part of the one thing there is, which means not only are you and I one, not only is Michael my brother, God bless him, but God is my brother, that I am one with the divine, that Jesus was not the only one, Muhammad, bless his holy name, was not the only one. The Buddha was not the only one. I mean, these people from ancient times were not the only human beings on the earth who were one with God. We are all one with God. Each of us is an individuation of the divine. Or to speak metaphorically, each of us is a flower in the garden of God. And so, but what we experience when we are in a space where that sense of community is vibrant, we can feel it just walking into the room. And that's that desire to express our oneness is a natural consequence of the soul's understanding that we are separated from nothing and from no one. We just imagine that we are.
I love that. I love that. Ashe, thank you so much for breaking that down. And it also brings up another question about fear and love, which, you talk a lot about duality as well. And my book was Let Your Fears Make You Fierce, and the difference between fear and love. And what is your concept around, in this circle of oneness, about the fear, the darkness, the judgment, the pain, and its relationship with pure love?
Fear is an expression of love. And so I never reject fear. I don't try to not be afraid. Fear is an expression of love. Or to put it simply, if we didn't love something, we wouldn't have any fear. If I didn't love my life, I wouldn't fear losing it. If I didn't love you, I wouldn't fear losing you. If I didn't love my cell phone, I wouldn't be afraid that somebody might steal it if I leave it laying on the table in the restaurant. So the only reason that I fear anything is because I love something. So fear is an expression of love. The question is, can we actually love our fears? Can we notice that when we are afraid of something, fear gives us an opportunity to look behind the fear and say, what is it that I love so much that I'm afraid of losing it or not ever getting it?
Yeah.
And does that love that I love so much, does that thing that I love so much, is it money? Is it power? Is it sex? Is it friendship? Is it being approved of? Is it approval? What is it that I love so much that I'm afraid of not getting it ever, or of losing it once I get it? And once I identify what I love so much that sponsors my fear of losing it or not ever having it, then I can decide, is that who I really am? Is that really who I really am? And that question is answered by another question that I ask myself. What does this have to do with the agenda of my soul? So, Koya, when I lived on the sidewalk for a year, I learned, I'm not talking about a couple of bad weeks or a month or two in the wintertime. I was on the street for a year. And once you live on the street for a year, you literally don't have 30 cents to your name.
Right.
Maybe at the end of the day, you've collected $6 or $8 from some people. And once in a while, not often, but once in a while, somebody actually gives you a $5 or a $10 bill. And once you've lived that way, and every day and get up in the morning, you've got if it's a good day, you might have $1.50 to your name.
Right.
No place to sleep, on the ground, thank you very much. No place to go to the bathroom. I suppose one could have one little experience of eliminating liquid from your body. You could do that behind a building, but it's kind of hard to eliminate solid matter from your body. What we used to call as a child number two. It's hard to go to the bathroom number two when there's no bathroom to go to. You're living on the sidewalk. You have to go into a restaurant and hope they don't stop you. Hope they will let you use the public bathroom. And I was stopped. It was in the movie. They made a movie of my life, of course, as you may know. And in the movie, they put that scene in the movie because, the screenwriter was asking me about my life, and I told him about my experiences. He said, "Oh, that's going in the movie," because I did approach a restaurant, and the manager of the restaurant came up to me. Of course, I was long-haired. I didn't smell good. I'd been on the street for 7 months. It was obvious that I was a street person. It was obvious I didn't come in there to buy a big meal. And so the manager, who happened to be a lady, said to me, no. I said, I just need to use the bathroom. She said, no. I said, please, I really, really need to use the bathroom. I don't have any dignity left. I have no dignity left. Just let me have 5 minutes in the bathroom. I promise I won't cause any trouble. She looked at me and she said, all right, in and out. I said, you got it. And I realized in that moment what it was like to have no dignity left, to have to beg to simply go to the toilet. That will reduce you to zero, ground zero, below ground zero. And then you try to walk through the rest of your life with a sense of who you really are. And that's, of course, when I reached out to God. I said, okay. Obviously, there's something here I don't understand. The understanding of which would change everything. And that's why I had my conversations with God.
Wow. That's I just had a visual of that bathroom experience, and, being a Black woman, so many people who, even not being a street person, just because of the color of their skin, got denied access
to the bathroom so many decades, and I know in the last couple of years, a lot of people maybe didn't know about that or didn't understand like how that can have such a profound effect on someone's heart, like you just expressed. And that stuff sticks with you. You can feel it, right? On a soul
until
level.
It doesn't. Until
right.
you release
it.
I've got to tell you, there's a bookend, there's a parentheses, there's the other parentheses of that story about what I call Neale's bathroom story. Years later, after I had written my books and they had become reasonably popular, I was in the men's room in some hotel. I forgot where it was, but I was in the men's room in the stall at some hotel, and some gentleman came into the men's room and he pushed a copy of my book under the door of the stall. And he said, "Mr. Walsch, would you mind?" And I said, "Let me see if I understand it. You want me to autograph my book while I'm sitting here on the job?" He said, "Well, I see." He said, "I saw you walk in here, and I ran out to my car because I have a copy of your book in my. I recognized you, and I saw you walk in here. So I thought, here's a chance to get your autograph."
Mm-hmm.
But, I thought, well, from not being allowed to go into the bathroom to have somebody follow you into the bathroom and push a book under the stall door and ask you for your autograph, I thought, well, I guess we've come a little way. So, of course, I signed his book, naturally, and I gave it to him, and I told him my story. I said, "You're going to have to pay for me signing this book because you have to pay with 5 minutes of your time, because I have to tell you of a time when I had to beg to even get into the bathroom.
Mm.
Now people follow me in to get my autograph." So, and what that taught me is, if you have enough love in your heart, life will come full circle, even for Black women.
Black women, Black men, any minority, any person that has ever been treated wrong, I think is going to hear this and realize that, even though these things happen, it's not about what happens. It's about how we react to what happens. And that's what you said in one of your interviews. And when it comes to the reaction, because we know it didn't go straight from the bathroom scene to the toilet with the book under the door, right? So can you give us a little just practical tips? My community, Get Loved Up, is about spirituality, wellness, and entrepreneurship. And we went deep on the spiritual because you are a spiritual mentor to me. But now when it comes to well-being, what can a person do on a regular basis? I don't know if you have specific rituals. I know you mentioned you're not as disciplined, but what can a person do, especially when you're going through the thick of maybe not having dignity, maybe feeling like less than and feeling like you're looked at as a certain way because, you might not have a best-selling book or all of these accolades yet. What kind of hope, inspiration, or like kind of rituals can you give one to practice that can help them develop the courage and the self-dignity to move forward?
The fastest way to get to that place you're describing for me would be to embrace the fundamental message of conversations with God. I ask God directly, okay, what does it take to make life work? Just give it to me in one simple sentence. I'm really tired of all the catechism, all the doctrine, all the dogma, all the speeches, all the books, just all the workshops, all the retreats. Just give it to me in one sentence. I dare you, God. Reduce it to one sentence. God said, okay, here's the sentence. You're going to hell. No, that wasn't the sentence. I just made that up. The sentence was, Neale, it's very simple. Your life has nothing to do with you. It's about everyone whose life you touch and the way in which you touch it.
Mm.
Now, when I embraced that, of course, I asked other questions. Well, what does that mean? What does that look like? Give me some examples. God said something very simple. Be the source. Mm. This was one of the primary messages in book 1. I said, be the source. What does be the source mean? And she said, Neale, whatever you want more of in your life, be the source of it in the life of another. Mm-hmm. Whatever you want more of. You want more
Whatever
money?
You want more of, be the source of that thing for others.
Yes. Find someone who has even less than you. If you want more money in your life, be the source of more money in the life of another. Mm. If you want more love in your life, be the source of more love in the life of another. Mm. If you want more humor in your life, be the source of more humor in the life of another. Right. If you want more sex in your life, well, the point is. So whatever you want more of, allow yourself to be the source of that in the life of another. Mm. And when you become the source of that in the life of another, whether you want more understanding, more compassion, more companionship, whatever it might be, when you become the source of that in the life of another, what happens is a miracle. You suddenly discover, oh my gosh, I have that to give. I think I don't have enough, but I actually have enough to give away. I have enough time. I have enough compassion. I have enough understanding. I have enough awareness. I have enough money. Even if I only give a quarter or $1 or a $5 bill away, I have enough. And that gives a person the experience of havingness, the experience of abundance, enough to give it away. And of course, that then becomes the energy you project into the universe. And the universe says yes to whatever energetic signature that you send into the universe. Mm. So if your signature suddenly is, I have enough, I have so much that I can give it to somebody else. There's an old saying in the business world, if you want to get something done, go to somebody who has no time to do it.
Wow.
They'll get it done for you. So I've learned, when I see that, I never ever pass anybody on the street who has his hand out, whether they're sitting against a building with a little hat in front of them, whether they're standing on a corner with a cardboard sign that says anything helps, whether they're just a person that walks up to me on the street. I never, ever, ever pass anybody who asks for help. I have a bucket in my car between the seats with a few dollar bills and a couple of 5s and some quarters. And if I'm pulling up at an overpass exit, a highway exit, and there's some guy standing there with a cardboard sign, anything helps, I roll down the window of my car, grab a 5, and I reach out and said, here, pal. I did that. I learned that lesson when I was very, very broke. I don't know whether you ever saw the movie, the Conversation with God movie, but in that movie, it depicts an experience that I had. I had an opportunity to go to a job interview, but I didn't even have the car fare. I couldn't. It was about 12 or 15 miles away, and I couldn't even afford to take the bus.
Mm.
But the other guys in the homeless park where I lived, they heard that I had a chance to get a job. They said, hey, he's got a chance to get Neale's got a chance to get a job. But he can't get to the interview.
Mm.
And one of the guys came up to me after about an hour, and he handed me about $6 or $8 in coins. He said, hey, the guys took up a collection.
Mm.
Here, get to that interview. Guys who had nothing gave me of the nothing they had because they decided they had enough. And the lesson I learned that day, I got the job, by the way. It was a weekend job. It was just a weekend job, Saturday and Sunday job. But I got the weekend job. And I made $50 a day. I remember it vividly. It was more money in those days than it is now. But I made $50 a day, which was $100, for the weekend, which was $400 a month. Now, when you're broke, when you have no money at all and no income, $400 a month is a lot of money.
Right.
Don't you think I didn't go back to that homeless park and start giving $20 bills away? Hey, you were there on St. Crispin's Day. You know that quote from Shakespeare?
Mm.
You were there on St. Crispin's Day.
Mm.
You were there when it mattered.
Mm.
So, as Shakespeare said, there are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy.
And what does that mean to you?
It means there are more things that are dreamt of in your philosophy. So you better expand your philosophy to include things you never dreamt of, including that you could actually have a conversation with God, that she would actually talk to you, that he would share his life's greatest secrets, and that you could be one with the divine and one with everyone whose life you touch.
Absolutely. And your philosophy is we all can have conversations with God, correct?
That's, in the first 20 pages of the first book. There are 3,000 pages in 9 Conversations with God books. But in the first 20 pages of the first book, it says, in God's voice, I talk to everyone all the time.
And what if people feel like, well, I try to talk to God, but I can't hear anything?
Because they're expecting to receive the messages from God in a particular way. But it could come up, in the words on the billboard as you're driving down the road, or the lyrics of the next song you hear, or the chance utterance of a friend on the street, or the headline you see on a magazine in the beauty shop. God's messages will come to you in 1,000 different ways across 1,000 moments. All you have to do is let those who have ears to hear listen. And you'll receive the messages. But often people receive the messages and they say, no, it's just my imagination. It's not really God talking to me. You say, why do you say that? You say, well, it's too good to be true. I remember I said that to God. I said, hey, some of this that you're telling me is too good to be true. God's answer was, hey, Neale, if God can't be too good to be true, who can?
Right. That part. Part.
I learned not to reject any of the messages. And I learned that God is talking to everyone all the time. It's not a question of to whom is God talking. It's a question of who's listening.
Who's listening.
And who's willing. Who's willing to listen. We call it everything else. We call it women's intuition, a stroke of genius, a sudden insight, an epiphany. We'll call it whatever we can get away with calling it, because we're afraid if we call it, God talking directly to me will be marginalized and ridiculed and made wrong. So let's just call it women's intuition.
Right.
You know,
but
or
you've
whatever.
had some time where you feel like, is this really God?
Of course
right?
I did.
So how
Larry
did you get
King
that?
asked me that question. I was on
Right.
Larry's program a few years ago, and Larry actually asked me the question, do you ever doubt that you actually had conversations with God? And I looked Larry in the face on international television, because his program was televised all over the world.
Mm.
I said, Larry, the day that I stop doubting is the day that I become dangerous. And I have no intention of becoming dangerous.
So you're having conversations with God every single day.
Sure. Having one right now. Who the hell do you think you are?
So I'm God.
My dear, if God doesn't look like you, then I don't know what divinity is.
So we all are God then.
Of course we are.
Mm.
We are each individuations of divinity. The question is not whether we are each a part of God, but whether we choose to act like it.
Mm. But what if when we're mean and angry and all those other and judgmental and jealous, are we still God?
We are God, having forgotten who we are.
Mm.
Simply forgotten who we are.
Mm.
And sometimes I have to actually say to people, I'm sorry, I forgot myself.
Mm.
I forgot myself.
I love that. I forgot myself.
Yeah, I forgot myself.
Next time I get in an argument, be like, hold up, I forgot myself. Let me go find myself. Okay, I'm definitely using that one. That was good. I'm gonna like, I got this from Neale. If I'm acting out of character, just bear with me. I need to go find myself.
Yeah, I've often said to people, I'm not feeling myself today. Just not feeling myself today. Right.
So, and in those times, just to expound on that a little bit, like I found when I'm not feeling myself, it is best to be alone and process my emotions. What are your recommendations when you're not feeling yourself? You're not feeling like your God presence, your God self.
Tell the truth.
Mm.
For me, it's the opposite of you. When I'm not feeling myself, I don't want to be alone.
Mm.
I want to be with somebody who would listen to me, hear me, allow me to confess, in a sense, that I'm not being myself, that would hear my sadness around that would hear my willingness to get back to myself, and that would help me go there. Mm. I had such a person in my life. She's called a wife.
Mm. Wow. Do you think that's from your early childhood of like confession? Like, because
I don't think it's from confession, but it's from my experience of my mother.
Mm.
It's not my experience of religion, but my experience of my mother, who encouraged me to always tell her how I was feeling.
Mm.
And she created a safe space for me to do that, however I was feeling. So, yeah, when I'm feeling not like myself, I find someone, almost always it's my wife.
Mm.
And I say,
that's her soul. Can I talk to your wife too?
Yeah, she's a remarkable human being.
Wow.
She's written wonderful poetry.
Mm.
And I've put her poetry in my books. So she's a published poet, not just someone who writes poetry. She's had a couple of books published. And so she's a remarkable human being. And I can sit down with her and say, I think I've lost my way a little bit here. Not feeding myself today. And she will do something that all true demonstrations of divinity do. She will give me back to myself. She says, I see you. Can't fool me. I see you. It was a wonderful movie. I don't know whether you're old enough to remember it, but there was a movie that came out a few years ago called Avatar.
Oh, I love that movie. It's one of my favorites.
Well, go watch it again because you might remember something or you might notice something that you didn't really take notice of when you first saw it. The movie is a love story, of course, about two people but if you watch the movie, you'll notice that in the entire movie, no one ever says to anyone else, I love you.
They say,
the words I love you are never spoken in the entire movie. One of the words they say to each other, I see you.
Yes. I love that. I see you.
And that's what my wife says to me when I've lost myself. Whether it's for an hour or the better part of a day or whatever, just not feeding myself today. She'll grab me, put her hands on my face, look me in the eye, and she'll say, I see you.
That's powerful.
And need nothing back, which is the best part of it all. She never needs anything back.
Wow. Whew, you just got chills all over my body. That is so powerful, so beautiful. You definitely make me want to go watch Avatar again because I love that movie. And I think it's so important to feel seen. I think it is, more of a desire versus a need. And I feel like that human desire to be seen does bring us back to our spiritual self. And whether we are a millionaire or homeless, being seen as an emanation of the divine, being seen as love, I think is so profoundly powerful. Is there anything you go to other than God in your conversations with God and your wife to get filled up? I mean, my company is Get Loved Up. I was like, where do you go to get loved up? You go to your conversation with God. You go to, is there anything else that you like, movies or books or certain podcasts that you go to kind of like, inspire you or find yourself?
A place where I can give love. I don't get inspired by getting love nearly as much as I get inspired by giving love. So the first thing I do when I'm in that place is to find a place where I can give love, which is not difficult in this world. All I have to do is walk out the front door.
Right.
So I find a way that I can give love or just get on the internet. Don't even have to walk out the front door. Just get on the internet and find 100 places where I can give love. So that's the first thing I do. I don't look for a place that I can get it. I look for a place where I can give it. Because there's only one of us. And what I give to another, I give to myself. Because there's nobody else in the room.
I love that. Thank you so much. I can talk to you all day long, but I want to respect your time and just tell you how grateful I am that you took the time to see me, not only that day in Agape when Reverend Michael introduced us, but also in saying yes to come onto the Get Loved Up podcast and just bless us with your wisdom, your divine downloads, your conversations with God and the God solution. I think so many people are going to say so much out of this conversation. Is there any last words that you want to leave us with?
No, I think we've said it all.
And if you all haven't already, definitely go out and check out The God Solution, Neale's new book. Also, Conversations with God. I mean, they're both on Audible. If you like me, like I have them in physical form. Well, actually, I have Conversation with God in physical form, and I have The God Solution on digital and Audible. But I need a signed copy. I think next time I see you, I'm going to slide a copy underneath the sun, get my signed copy of The God Solution.
As long as you don't come into the men's room and put it under the stall of the door.
I mean, hey, can I go anywhere? These days, they're unisex bathrooms because we're all one. So, why not?
Yeah. There you go. Put it under the stall door and I'll sign it for you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. And where can people find out more and find more of your work?
All they have to do is go to cwgconnect.com. That's how we can stay connected. Awesome. cwgconnect.com. There's a platform there called Ask Neale, where people from all over the world ask me questions, actually every day, and I respond to them directly and personally. So cwgconnect.com.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Neale. And thank you all so much for tuning in every single week to the Get Loved Up podcast. We're so grateful to have you. If anything resonated with you or gave you the chills, like I've been just chilling over here, definitely let us know. Tag me, tag Neale on social media, and let us know your biggest takeaways from this episode. And if you haven't already left a review, leave us a review and let us know what you like about the podcast and what you want to see more of. Until next time, love yourself, love others, and love the world. One day at a time, one breath at a time. Peace and love.
I just want to take a moment to say thank you for being part of the Get Loved Up community. I like to share topics and people making a positive impact in the world, and your feedback means the world to me. If you haven't already left a review, please leave a 5-star review and let me know what you want to hear more of on the show. I'm here for you, and together we're making the world a better place, one day at a time, one show at a time. Thank you for listening.